great restaurants and lounges, the hottest entertainment, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. Now, alongside former Cougar great Alex Brink, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
Great to be with you here in the Cougar Football Complex. Washington State Signing Day 2020. This used to be the signing day. Now, a lot of the class is in, 85%, but I don't want to diminish any of the 5 that are in right now. We've got 5 brand new Cougar football players and some really big gets here, some late flips and some one junior college transfer and 4 true freshmen that I know Coach Rolovich and his staff are really excited about it. AB, great to have you here. Throw the headset on, get you here on the Palouse. Great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. A little snow out here. It's kind of nice.
It is a perfect Eastern Washington.
I'm all for it.
Winter signing
I'm here
day.
For the snow.
On the as we've got Husky basketball week coming up on Sunday. It's basketball weather. It's football signing day weather, and it's some really good-looking football players. You were watching film as you were getting prepped for the show here, and what jumped out at you? Tell you what, let's name these guys. Why don't you go through, name who pops out to you, and we'll go through all 5 new commits here for the Cougs.
Sure. I think, looking at what happened in the early signing period, Washington State got a lot of guys that they needed and in positions of need. One place that they did not fill out the class is at the cornerback position. And so there was a need. I mean, that definitely was a place that I think Washington State wanted to find more guys, was at that cornerback position. And boy, did they get 2 good ones. I think that the headliner, a late flip, as you mentioned, in-state kid, Alphonse Oyuwak from Kentwood High School in Kent, Washington, coached by none other than Mike Bush, former Washington State great, which is a pretty fun connection. But, I've seen Alphonse a lot throughout his high school career and had a chance to kind of follow him along his journey. This is a great signing for Washington State. He's big, physical corner, 6'3", 180 pounds. You don't find corners like that very often. They don't fall off trees. And the fact that he flipped late from Arizona to Washington State, it's a testament, right, to what this coaching staff did coming in and saying, hey, we're going to commit to going into to the state and find guys in the state and figure out places that, they could get those guys. And I think Alphonse is a crown jewel of what this class can be, and he's going to come in and compete and help right away. But the other one is Shaw Smith. Shaw Smith is a guy who, out of Chicago, people are kind of wondering, well, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. Well, he was getting recruited out Wyoming, and then with the coaching change, coaching staff coming in, right, they saw him as a guy that could fit in the Pac-12. He had some other offers, some other Power 5 offers as well, and I think it was that connection that then gets him here to Washington State. And Shaw Smith, he played running back in high school. He returned kicks in high school, played DB, very athletic, physical player, comes up and he will hit you, and I really liked what I saw from Shaw Smith on film. So those 2 DBs to me are big. That's a big piece of it. The other guy that I want to highlight, just because I had a chance to watch his film before this, was Mike Petway, wide receiver. He's from Alabama, Thompson High School, a great program in Alabama. He's 5'10", 170 pounds. He can flat fly. You watch his film, he is running by people all day. And when you're talking about high school football in Alabama, if you're running away from those guys, that means you're fast. And I was talking to passing game coordinator Craig Stutzman. He was a guy that said, hey, it's he can run. We wanted him. We wanted him at Hawaii. He was getting recruited by other guys or other schools, bigger schools. Once we got to Washington State, we said we have a chance to get him, and so they went and got Petway, and so that's a big signing as well.
2 other new Cougs. Fa'alili Fa'amoy is a 6'5", 225-pound freshman from Pago Pago, familiar to Cougs, very familiar to Cougs over the last few years, with loads of all-pack NFL talent coming here through Washington State from Pago Pago, as is the junior college transfer Antonio Pule, a 6'4", 260-pound junior. You've got Destiny Vial, Logan Tago, Daniel Equale, a lot of talent. I'm missing a couple. A lot of talent came through Pago Pago. Both of them are from Pago Pago, American Samoa. 6'5", 225 freshman Fa'alili Fa'amoy and Antonio Pule round out these 5.
Yeah, and those guys are going to come in and give you a chance on the defensive line to get some size in there. And that's one thing that Washington State defensively, when the Cougars had success, was they had a little bit more size on the defensive line than you've seen the last couple of years. So being able to bring those guys in, a guy like Destiny Vio, you think about his size and strength and what he could bring to it, the tenacity of Logan Tago, those sort of things. Those guys, coming from Pago Pago, from
Frankie Luvu
from America Samoa, from the islands, those guys come out here. This new coaching staff, right, they have the connections out to the islands and are able to get those guys to come over here to Pullman, and I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle as far as what this Washington State defense and offense is going to be. Is you're going to see those guys come in, and I look at Poulet and as a junior college transfer, his body's kind of filled out. You watch his film, he's got a chance to play early and come in and make an impact. 6'4", 260 pounds. He gets on campus, puts on even a little more weight. He can be very impactful. Whereas Famoy is going to be more of a guy that's a project. He's 215, 220 pounds. He's coming in as a freshman from Pago Pago, is going to have a chance to fill out a little bit once he gets on campus, gets in the weight room, does all those things. But either way, you look at where this class, the last 5 guys helped fill the class out. Defensive line, corner, you get an extra receiver that's kind of a bonus to me. But the defensive side of the football, you really rounded out this class, I think, in a really quality way.
There's also a chance this is not the end of the list,
Sure.
and there's a chance there is another commit coming in, and that may happen within the hour. We'll be on live here till noon Pacific, and maybe we'll have some late-breaking news here on this second signing day. So, again, 5 new Cougs. Fa'alili Fa'amoy is a 6'5", 225-pound freshman from Pago Pago. Alphonse Oiwak is a 6'3", 180-pound freshman from Kent. The West Side rated the number 17 corner in the country, and he was committed to the University of Arizona. He has flipped now with Coach Rolovich and Jake Dickert and this new staff. They've brought in Oiwak, and they've been very vocal about in-state recruiting, and clearly this helps satisfy that maybe growing trend, and I think Coug fans and everybody would love to see a growing trend of high-quality in-state high school football players, and even from the state of Oregon coming here to the Palouse. Mike Petway, a 5'10", 170-pound freshman from Alabaster, Alabama. Antonio Poulet, a 6'4", 260-pound junior from Modesto Junior College, a JUCO transfer, but originally from Pago Pago. And Shaw Smith, a 6', 180-pound freshman from Chicago, Illinois, who, as you had alluded to, I believe it was Purdue was in on Shaw Smith, and maybe Illinois as well. I think were 2 Big Ten schools that were in on Shaw Smith. Minnesota was in also on. Some of these kids really were very highly recruited. Oiwak, probably the highest rated. You take, to a degree, ratings with grains of salt. They are worth something. They're not irrelevant, but it's really what you like and what you see on film, and I know that you really did like them.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about recruiting at this level is that, when you have coaching changes, recruiting is all about relationships, right? So sometimes, a guy like Oiwak or, Shaw Smith or, Poulet and all these guys, they know, they have relationships with a lot, guys on this new staff that they, obviously didn't have relationships maybe with, Mike Leach and his staff, but so these guys are getting recruited at a high level other places. And when you have coaching turnover, it almost opens all these new doors to athletes that, you haven't seen before or haven't been on your radar before. And, that was, talking about Petway was kind of the same thing. Shaw Smith was the same thing. These guys, this staff, both offensively and defensively, wanted these guys at Hawaii, but they were punching a little above their weight class trying to get them out to the island. And now when you're in a place like Washington State in the Pac-12, Power 5 with the facilities, the success Washington State has had, it's easier to go and recruit those guys. An in-state guy like Alphonse, who's a 4-star recruit, like you said, a top 20 corner in the country with his size and his athletic ability, it's almost like, boy, that's a no-brainer to go try and make a run at that guy. And the relationship, having a guy like Mike Bush as your head coach, who has the Washington State connection, now that's how you're able to execute getting a guy to flip late in the process. And lots of times in my experience, those are the guys that they end up becoming such special players for your university because they want to be there so bad, and the commitment that they said, boy, I'm going to come late, and Washington State's the place that I want. It's pretty cool.
I feel like you might be speaking a little bit from personal experience.
Yeah, I did not, definitely a little Freudian, did not mean to do that, but that is exactly what happened to me. And so I definitely have some experience in that realm.
I love it. Now, here's what we're going to get to do in this show, and this is part of why I'm really excited, very much so. It's a small part of this class. There are, just numerically, there are 5 new Cougs. When we spoke a couple of months ago when Jess was here and we were up in Coach's office, it was 18 new Cougs. So we've got a lot of the hour left, and what we're going to do is actually get to talk to some of the new coaches and introduce Coug fans and ourselves to Brian Smith, Jake Dickert, Michael Gabriel, and Craig Stutzman. Brian Smith, I believe, we'll have on next. He's our new offensive coordinator and running backs coach, which in and of itself is a really interesting combo. OC running backs coach. It's going to be really fun. So we'll talk to Brian Smith in just a moment. We'll take a break. We are live here in the Cougar Football Complex. It's signing day 2020. The class has just about finally been fully completed. We do await, I'll leave it at that. We do await maybe some other news here, but a lot of the class is in, about 99%. We are live here. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're clear.
The more you watch him and the more you watch him play, there's just so many things
Stand
he
by.
can do. The kid can do it all.
It's the Cougar Signing Day Special, presented by Northern Quest Resort and Casino.
Mike's up.
Back here live on the Palouse. We are live in the Cougar Football Complex and joined now by our new offensive coordinator, Brian Smith. Great to meet you. Thanks for throwing the headset on here.
I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
And congratulations on a really exciting class. Before we dive in to the guys, let's talk about you a little bit.
Sure.
You coached last 4 years at Hawaii. You played offensive line at Hawaii. And I think what a lot of folks want to hear about and would love to know about is, as an offensive lineman and a running backs coach here, how does that work with the run and shoot as much as Coach Rolovich throws the ball?
Sure. The reason why I like coaching running backs when I coordinate is it gets me involved with everything, right? So you're involved with the passing game, you're involved with Skelly, you're involved with inside run game protection. So you get an overall perspective of the entire offense. You're not as focused on just one facet. That's why I like that role when I do coordinate. I think Coach Rolo and I have a long-standing, great relationship together. We work very well together, and I think that's where he really likes me in that role, where I can have a little different perspective than him on run game protection, make sure those things are squared away. And then I've spent a lot of time, developing my knowledge and my understanding of the passing game within our offense.
Are you up in the booth? Are you on the field? How does it work on game day?
I go in the booth.
Okay.
Yeah, I love being up there. It kind of emotionally detaches you from the game a little bit, where you can be a little more analytical when you are evaluating and calling the offense.
Coach, I'm a quarterback guy,
Yes.
obviously, so I got to talk about the success you guys had at Hawaii with the quarterback position. Cole McDonald obviously was a great player,
Right.
But production was always high. Obviously, guys did it both on the ground and throwing the football. Just talk a little bit about philosophically, like how the quarterback position maybe operates within the run and shoot, what that means for those guys.
Yeah, it's a difficult position for us with what we do because we ask a lot of them. They have to understand coverages. There's a lot of post-snap adjustments with the receivers. So for them, they really have to be another coach on the field because there's a lot of communication with the quarterbacks and the receivers based on what they see and why they're doing what they're doing. Because until you really understand the quarterback's perspective, that's the reason why the receivers, quarterbacks always meet together, so that the receivers are hearing exactly what the quarterbacks are hearing, and you get to have dialogue between the quarterbacks and the receivers in the meeting of, this is why I did what I did. And I think that dialogue allows for the learning to be a lot better and the understanding of the two positions to be better. Sometimes if they're separate, the receivers can be in a room thinking that they're doing what was right, and in the other room, the quarterbacks are doing what they think is right, and they're not quite getting on the same page. So that's why we want them together as much as we can to have them gel and be on the same page. And we do a lot with our RPO game and the run game. There's a lot of checks with the run game that they have to be aware of. So it is a challenging position to play within what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love hearing that the guys meeting together. I tell you what, because that's like, from my experience, that's one of the toughest parts of both quarterback and receiver, right? Like you said, you're watching film, you're like, boy, I thought I did that right, and the quarterback's saying, man, I thought I did it right, and we're not on the same page. And in this, in the run and shoot, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's, like you said, there's so much happening post snap where receivers are reading coverage as much as quarterbacks are, and so making sure those guys are in tune is so key.
When there's a lot of just depth and leverage of how they interpret what they're seeing.
Right.
And I think once they get to communicate together on why they felt what they felt or why they saw what they saw, then they start understanding the positions a little bit better and understand what to expect when it happens again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Live here, signing day 2020 with offensive coordinator, running backs coach Brian Smith and Brinker. Let's get specific now. The room currently, and help me if I'm missing anybody, Max Borghi, Juvenzli Bazil, Deion McIntosh. There's a lot of talent there.
There is a lot of talent.
Must be pretty low. Must feel pretty good about what you're inheriting here on the Palooza.
Absolutely. My experience with them so far is they're all great kids. They're working really hard in the off season. In my meetings with them, it seems like they all got along well. Which the running back room can always be an interesting room because there's a lot of times only one guy playing at a time. So the competitiveness within that group can be a little bit challenging. But so far they've been really great kids. They work hard, and there definitely is talent there. So it's an exciting group to get a chance to work with.
How do you? And I don't. You feel free to deviate from this. I'm not going to hold you to this in a few months. But in terms of distribution of the ball, one of the things that we got very accustomed to was, in terms of passing, obviously with the air raid, but running, there were generally two running backs, sometimes three. Last year was a little more of just Max. Do you have a plan? Do you know, like, ideally we've got two guys carrying the ball or three guys?
Yeah, I mean, that gets built as you get closer to the season in terms of what your depth looks like, what the situations are. We've done a lot of different things in my years. Sometimes it's a 2-to-1 series ratio. Sometimes it's based off down and distance, based off what guys' skill sets are. There's situations where we might want to get a better blocker in third downs. Sometimes where it's a close enough level of talent where you can just roll guys every couple series, and you're not losing much. So a lot of it just depends on what you have, what everyone's role is.
How much does the running back in the run and shoot, as I need to be more intimate with the run and shoot, as we'll all learn more about it. How much does the running back catch the ball in the flat? Is it mostly hands off, or is it what's the?
They can catch it a lot. There's times where we haven't thrown to them very much.
Yeah.
A lot of it's based off of the skill set of the player.
Okay.
There's years when in Hawaii in the past where we've had close to 1,000-yard receivers out of the backfield based off our screen game and the ability to catch the ball in the backfield. There's other times where it's a handful in the season basically because of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to use their skills. I know there's some kids in the program now that can catch the ball in the backfield, so that'll be something that we'll work on more in the spring and make sure we're utilizing correctly.
Love it.
You're inheriting obviously a pretty good receiver room. They've been productive.
Yes.
It's a talented group, but also looking at the class coming in, specifically the two guys that signed today in Petway And then we had a recent addition here in Jay Wilkerson,
Yeah,
which we just came through.
Just came through.
Just came through
just
now.
got
So
in.
maybe we talked briefly about Petway, but give us your thoughts on him, and then
Sure.
and then maybe talk about Jay Wilkerson, who came in from the Dallas area.
Yeah, so Petway, kid from Alabama, real good high school player, and he's a kid that just has a lot of speed. And the funny thing is when we got here with the new staff, obviously majority of all of our offensive staff came, a couple of the defensive coaches came, and then there's some new coaches from Wyoming. So when we're watching recruits together, something that they're asking is, what are you guys looking for in your receivers? Almost simultaneously, myself, Stutz, and Rollo all say speed. and then their response is, what kind of speed? They say, how fast you got?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
We'll never try to sacrifice on speed. We'll sacrifice size, things like that, but we want them as fast and as twitchy as they can get. Something that Mouse Davis has always said that stuck with me is, the football doesn't weigh very much. You don't have to be big to carry it across the end zone. So we want guys that can run and scare people vertically. That's where the run and shoot starts with, is being able to attack teams vertically and scare them vertically. And then we'll adjust off of that. And that's a kid that can do that. He has the ability to play both inside and outside. So there's some flexibility with him, which is great. Very competitive kid. He graduated early, which made me wish that we were here a little bit earlier, but we could have gotten him in at mid-year and gotten a chance to work with him in the spring. But, we'll take him in fall, and he'll be a good player for us.
Thank you for doing this, Brian. Really appreciate it. We're gonna go Jake Dickert. A little bit. We got some Jake's right behind us here.
Sure.
We're gonna throw a headset on him. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank
you for doing
guys.
this. Brian
Thanks,
Smith,
Coach.
our OC. We'll take a break. Come back. We're live here on the Palouse. It's signing day 2020.
At U.S. Bank.
Back here live with Alex Brink. We are live on the Palouse. It's signing day 2020, and very pleased to be joined by new Cougar defensive coordinator Jake Dickert. Welcome to the Palouse. Welcome to Washington State. It's a pleasure to meet you. It really is.
It's great to be here. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of good, fresh, new energy. Obviously, with Coach Rollo coming in, it's just exciting to finally, put a close to this class and then kind of really dig into our guys that are here already. So, it's been a great couple of weeks, and just excited to really get this thing rolling.
What was you were the defensive coordinator at Wyoming. Yep. What was your scheme there? I mean, I've read about it, but I want to hear you say it. What was your scheme there, and how does that translate to Washington State, the Pac-12 personnel? What are you trying to install here?
Well, I know the biggest thing that's out there, I mean, we have a scheme that's proven to work. We know the details of it. We know how to coach it. We've been more 4-2-5, really establishing the line of scrimmage. Okay, we want to build everything on our defense from inside out. So it starts with that 3 technique, and that's where you're going to see a couple of those guys today in our signing class that can really establish ourselves in the middle. So we're going to build it there. We're going to build it up front, and really have changed the mindset a little bit to from being small and fast, okay, to physical and aggressive. And those are the biggest things that we want to try to establish the line of scrimmage, play on the offensive side of the ball, and really start there. But the broad end of the scheme is in the Tampa 2 package, the Seattle 3, where we kind of got all of our stuff is from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a lot of the stuff that people saw in the Super Bowl with the 49ers is a lot of the things that we want to try to incorporate in our scheme. So a lot of base cover 3 stuff, man, and just being aggressive when we can.
One thing that always stood out to me about, the Wyoming football teams of kind of recent past and Washington State, I mean, we have experience having gone out, right, to Laramie. But what has stood out as I've watched those teams those last couple of years, and you alluded to it, is the physicality. And no matter if you're playing a Mountain West opponent or a Power 5 opponent, but the physical nature of what that team was always stood out. And to your point, it felt like, the linebackers were downhill. There was always a safety that was playing downhill and fit in the box really well. And, I think that's, to me, that's one thing I'm very excited about. But the second piece of what you're talking about, which is, that high-level NFL-style coverage scheme is, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, can be very effective against a pass-heavy kind of Pac-12-oriented, offensive styles, right?
Yeah, it's a matching, and we still got to make sure as a staff this isn't the Wyoming defense, okay? This is going to be the Washington State defense, So we're bringing in a couple other guys and coaches to kind of meld it and mold it to exactly what we want it to do. But we feel like we have the cover guys and the schemes and just the aggressiveness of what we want to do in the back end, to cut those guys loose up front, but still match up, be very multiple. We don't like to be, too simple. We want to make sure we're complex through simplicity. So the teaching of it, the coaching of it, the energy of it. I think the biggest thing in our past, the biggest compliment I can get is that your guys play really hard. Yeah. So what you're talking about with the buy-in to each other, and when you don't want to let each other down, I think that's the biggest thing. So we're going to preach love to our guys. We're going to preach buy-in to our guys. And we're going to play with an energy regardless of scheme. So I think when you're going to watch Saturdays, you're going to see our guys playing extremely hard and play for one another.
Day-to-day game day logistics, will you be field or booth? Or?
I'll be down in the field.
Okay.
I think I'm comfortable down there. I think at the linebacker position, it's the core of what we do. So just adjustments and sometimes calming those guys down and making sure we're on the right page as a staff. I'll be down in the field.
Did you specifically kind of looking at these last 5-6 guys here and the defensive guys, did you have a role recruiting these guys specifically, or was it just kind of knowing who they were on the board and that sort of thing?
It was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
When we came in a couple of weeks ago, the boards are really clean.
Sure.
It wasn't a whole lot on there, so we had to put this together in a quick order. But it was a combination of guys we knew at Wyoming, guys that they knew at Hawaii. So we had good relationships with some of those guys and ended up panning off as today we get signing day.
That's awesome. I think the one thing that fans are going to know, I kind of want to know too, to be honest with you, a kid like Alphonse Oiwak, like I've known him, I've seen him around being in the Northwest, and the fact that he's coming to Washington State is a pretty special thing. Talk a little bit just briefly about that process from the time you guys started talking to him till now.
Well, the biggest point was Fonz was the first guy we watched, as a staff. And it was like, hey, this is an in-state player. He has care. He has a high level of skill. I think he brings a lot of, multiple talents, and we can play him in a lot of positions. So when we had his visit last week, we think he can be a corner, obviously, a safety, a nickel. Those are the type of guys that we want to bring into our program just with a lot of different high-level skill sets. So bottom line is he's carrying the state of Washington today, and we want to establish ourselves and what we want to do in this state in recruiting. And we're just excited. What a great family. What a great kid. He's going to work hard. And, everyone doesn't understand, he was more of a basketball kid.
Right.
So his ceiling is so high.
Now, careful. Kyle Smith's here. Head basketball coach is in the building.
I know.
He's listening.
I know. But we love those guys that are multi-sport athletes, do multiple things. So I think his ceiling for his growth is really, really high.
You played at Wisconsin Stevens Point. You're from Wisconsin.
I am.
Today it's a hot day, and it's toasty outside with about 8 inches of snow down.
Yeah, this is normal. This doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah.
I'm from a small town in Wisconsin. Moved a bunch growing up, but Pullman and this community is really what I'm used to and really what I'm excited about because it's about the people. When you get out in the community, it's a big, big deal.
Everybody in the country sort of knew, okay, in the past, Hawaii, June Jones, they can score, they'll throw the ball, and then it was like, oh, Hawaii's back. Right. Nick Rolovich is throwing the ball. And I would imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but you're running things at Wyoming. People knew about the Wyoming defense, Craig Ball and the Wyoming defense, what's going on there. And so it's kind of this marriage of like this great, by reputation, this offense, and then this really high-quality defense. And I would imagine from your perspective, it's exciting to kind of partner up with Nick Rolovich. You weren't with him last year, but I'm sure you obviously competed against him.
I think there's a lot of mutual respect both ways, and the biggest thing when this opportunity originally we started to talk about it, the biggest thing for me was Coach Rolo is we want to be a team. This isn't offense versus defense. We're a team, and what that looks like on how we practice and how we take reps and how we want to win on Saturdays. It isn't just a shootout, so we want to have a mentality. And like you said at his press conference, they want to feel us on Sunday, and I think those two mindsets that we both have, I think it just was a good fit on how we want to establish. It's not just going to be something that's going to be an overnight deal. It's going to be a process. Things are going to change for our guys. But you're going to see, like I said, guys playing extremely hard and physical on Saturdays.
Love it. Great to meet you. Really is.
Fired up.
Coach
Absolutely.
Dickert.
Absolutely. Really
Thank you
pleasure,
for doing
guys.
this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Defensive
Coach.
coordinator
Appreciate
Jake Dickert. We'll continue with Michael Gabriel, special teams coordinator here on the Palouse Now. It's Cougar Football Signing Day 2020.
You may be
Back here live on the Palouse Cougar Football Complex, Signing Day 2020, alongside the QB-AB, Chaz here with you, and we've got Special Teams Coordinator Michael Gabriel. Welcome to the Palouse. Great to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Yeah, and now I'm sensing you two guys have some history here.
We had a little crossover.
Yeah.
Mike was at UCLA. I guess that was my junior and senior year. Was it your junior and senior year at the same time?
Yeah, so I got into UCLA in 06.
Yeah, so we had a little
crossover
crossover, but it's cool. We've buried the hatchet.
You were DN for the Bruins, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, DN outside backer.
Did you sack Alex? Did you ever tackle?
I never got
Alex?
to physically play against him.
Okay,
all right.
But just was able to
you
watch
just
him.
wanted
You
that
just stirring
so
the pot a
bad.
little
We're on the
bit.
same
I'm just
team.
You
stirring the
wanted that
pot.
so bad.
Just asking questions here. That's all I'm doing.
Yep.
Yeah, congratulations on a great new class here. I know everybody is really excited about a lot of the in-state and a lot of the ratings and whatnot. But as a special teams coordinator, you're coming in here and you're trying to do what? Are you kind of looking at the roster, say, how does it work with Coach Rolovich? Like, who do you get to play with kickoffs and with punt returns? And how does it work coordinating special teams now on this staff? Or are you still figuring that out because it's all so brand new?
No, so a lot of this this next phase is going to be learning for me, trying to figure out what we have, what we'll be good at. So I know spring ball is going to be very important. But up until then, just watching these guys work out, figuring out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and maximizing their strengths, that's going to be important to me. Because at the end of the day, I just want to set them up for success. And the only way I could do that is if I know these kids, not only from a physical basis, but also from a personal personal standpoint. We just want to make sure that, trust is built. And, at the end of the day, when you can have that and know the combination of the two, I think the players will play hard. So.
And you've had success at your time, throughout kind of your career so far as being a special teams coordinator. What is it that scheme's obviously one thing, but teams are a lot, like you said, about kind of playing hard and doing it the right way. What is it for you as you start assembling these teams that you're trying to instill in these guys?
The one thing that I'm going to harp on from day one when I have my first meeting is creating a style. And protecting that style by all means. Whether that correlates to high-ranking statistics, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I know that the Washington State population is going to be proud to see the product on the field. Some of the key components that I feel allow for success on special teams are relentless effort, number one, discipline, extreme toughness, passion, and humility. So those are the things that we're going to try and create in spring ball. And the number one thing, it's not going to be easy, but anything worth having in life isn't. So, at the end of the day, the best gifts come from the bottom, and as long as we can continually fight for those attributes, I think we'll have some success.
Who's special teams coordinator Michael Gabriel? One of the strong points of last year was the field goal kicking unit. Blake Mazza was finalist for the Lou Groza Award. Blake's got a big leg. I would think, Jack Crane is over at Wake Forest now, so kickoff wise, that is a little bit of does Blake do kickoffs and all that stuff? You're just trying to figure all that out, aren't you?
Yeah, no question. And we're not able to work with them quite yet. Once we get into spring ball, I'll be able to see, like I said with other personnel, is what guys can do well. And I know with Blake, he was obviously very efficient as a field goal kicker. I know he has aspirations to play at the highest level, and as a kicker, who wants those chances, he's going to have to be able to, incorporate kickoffs into his work. So whether it's him or whether it's another guy on the roster, there's going to be open competition. At the end of the day, I think that's how you have the best product on the field, is you create competition, not only in the kicking game, but just, the guys that are covering the kicks as well. So.
It sure feels like in my kind of limited interaction so far with this staff, Coach Rolo, kind of starting from the top, is, and a lot of you guys were at Hawaii together, but, it seems very high energy, close knit, like it just right from the jump. I've been here, 2 hours and I got that feeling. Is that something that you guys pride yourselves in?
I truly believe that there's a sense of authenticity that, I think a lot of the guys on Rolo's staff, embody. And I think that's the reason why we have fun together. And I think that feeds off into the players as well, and it's an awesome work environment. Number one, Coach Rolo is one of the best people I've ever worked for. And he's one of the best coaches I've ever worked with in that regard. So it's a fun atmosphere. At the end of the day, we know when we have to go to work, we're working. When we know we can have some fun, we're going to have some fun. But yeah, no, it's definitely a cool staff to be part of.
You had a really high kick return average last year at Hawaii. 23 yards of kick return was toward the top of the Mountain West, and so when you're talking to your returners, how do you feel about the fair catch? Do you like to fair catch it? Like some teams, it's just auto fair catch. Let's take it to the 25. Some guys are like, no, let's take it to the house. Let's go. How do you feel about that?
It definitely has a capacity to change the momentum of the game. We're going to take a common sense approach whether we fair catch it or whether we return it. I think there's merit to doing both. It just all depends on the game situation. It could depend on whether we're home or away. It could depend on our personnel that day of the game, because as you guys know, there's injuries that happen in football all the time. So, again, we're going to take a common sense approach, but, would like to create that same style here in terms of kickoff return average.
Well, look, I know you didn't hit him when you were playing, but feel free. If it didn't happen then, we can figure it out. We'll make it happen. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
It's really fun.
No,
Mike,
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, brother.
Michael Gabriel, our special teams coordinator. We'll continue next. Craig Stutzman, pass game coordinator, QB's coach, coming up live here, signing day 2020.
You're listening to the Cougar Signing Day Special, presented by Northern Quest Resort and Casino.
Mike's up.
Back here live, it is Signing Day 2020 alongside Alex Brink, Matt Chazanow with you, and great to be joined by pass game coordinator, QB's coach, Craig Stutzman. Thank you for throwing a headset on. Welcome to the Palouse. Congratulations on a great class.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's great to be here. I'm fired up. I'm ready for spring ball already.
You are 5th all-time in Hawaii receiving. You're a 2-time all-WAC honoree back when it was the WAC, and you are the QB's coach here. How has your transition gone from prolific wide receiver to quarterbacks coach?
It's been great. I mean, I've always been around great quarterbacks from high school, playing in college with those guys like Rollo, coaching them in high school, Marcus Mariota, those guys, and then being able to coach in college. And I tell you what, you're a much better quarterback coach when you got a really good quarterback, just like this guy over here.
No doubt.
Kind of in your words, I think a lot of folks would love to hear it just really, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, but there's this transition now from what fans know as the air raid to what you guys run and is called the run and shoot. In your words, kind of briefly, like what is the difference? What is it for those folks?
I think a lot of it has to do with being able to let the receivers have a lot of different options, and making those decisions based off of coverage. Quarterbacks being able to have all the answers built into every play and being able to get those guys dialed in, understanding, not just man versus zone, but what type of zone, what type of man, where's the softest coverage, where's the leverages and all those type of things. And then giving the receivers the ability to get open and understand that, because you got a leverage guy here or a safety here or whatever it is, you're able to break your routes at different angles. And whether it's running away, hitting the post, sitting the down, whatever it is, it's all built into one play. So, I think the other thing too is in talking with some of the other guys, I know that there's a lot of horizontal, stretch in the air raid where the run and shoot, there's a lot of vertical stretch, and we take a lot of shots down the field, and the ball gets out quick.
Right, and I think that's a cool piece. I think that's a really great distinction is that the ball is going to go more downfield than horizontal as you saw in the air raid, and that's kind of the fun part about the run and shoot is that ball is getting pushed vertically, and it's done, like you said, in a pretty quick way, in a smart way, but that is a pretty significant difference that I think fans and people around the program are going to notice right away is that, boy, that ball feels like it's going downfield a little bit more.
Yeah, it gets down the field, and like I said, we pride ourselves on getting the ball out anywhere from about 1.8 to 2.2 seconds. So that's what we want to do. We want to make it easy on the O-line. We want to get the ball out quick and let the playmakers around the perimeter go and make plays for us.
Actually, I keep thinking about, the first touchdown of last year. I might be, don't quote me, but I think it was a 41-yarder to Rod Fisher against New Mexico State. And he's fast, and Tay Martin's fast, and I'm thinking about all these outside guys with just, I say fly pattern. It's not necessarily a fly pattern, but a go route basically, and there's a lot of speed there. There's a lot of wide receiver talent. Jameer Calvin, Travell Harris. What have you seen? Have you had time to look at film of who's here and who the guys will be throwing to? We'll talk QBs in a second too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that was noticeable walking into the weight room the first day we got here was just being able to see the length, and the leanness of these players. And then being able to watch film the last few days of spring and fall camp for what they did last year, you can see the speed, the quickness. Every single guy in here has their specific traits, but at the same time, too, though, they all can run and they all can catch. So we're going to go ahead and use and maximize their abilities to the best that we can, and then teach them coverages, teach them how to get open, and have a conversation, because this offense is a very relationship-based offense between quarterback, receiver, and receiver, and quarterback and coach, and coaches and coaches, and coaches receivers. I mean, there's a reason why quarterbacks and receivers meet together every day.
Yeah, we got to talk quarterbacks. And I had a chance to talk briefly, so I know that you mentioned that, with both Cam and Gunnar who are on the roster, you had a chance to actually recruit them out of high school, so you know them a little bit. And then obviously Jaden Delora, I mean, he's from Hawaii. You guys recruit. I think you guys Hawaii was his first offer, right? Maybe, and so you know him pretty well. The other guys on the roster, John Bledsoe. Just in general, when you look at the QB room, and as you head into spring ball, what do you think about that position group and what it can be heading into next year?
First thing that comes to mind when I watch those guys, and it went all the way back from high school, is arm talent. Those guys can make all the throws. Very talented, very accurate, and I forgot how big those guys were. Talk about Cam and Gunnar and even John.
Gunnar
those guys
like a linebacker.
Yeah, they're big dudes. Yeah. They're big dudes, and so we were able to recruit those guys at the last place we were at. But at the same time, too, though, they started getting Pac-12 offers, and so we had to fall off a little bit. Now, being able to come back into the picture with those guys, extremely excited to work with them. And also with Jaden Delora coming in, in the summertime through the fall, he's going to understand what the offense is, because at St. Louis with Cal and Ron Lee, guys that coached me in high school, they're doing the same thing in the run and shoot. And so he'll have a basic knowledge of what we're trying to do, and then we're going to go ahead and kick it up to another level. But competition is wide open, and we're excited to see those guys play.
Yeah, it kind of culminates. So April 25th is the spring game, and so there will be – everybody's going to – just the first snap, okay, who's walking out there, who's spinning the rock? That's what everybody's looking at.
I mean, we'll set a depth chart, but really what it is just a starting point, as you know. It's just who's going to go with who, and we're going to rotate them every day, and let those guys, because, combinations of receivers with quarterbacks, sometimes, the guys look better or they might not look as good. So we're trying to find the best combination that we can, and the best guys going to play. That's all I can say.
I don't know how much you had a chance to. You were so busy, But this past year, there's this incredible story in the air raid and in the nation with Brandon Arconato. He's a former walk-on slot receiver. He was earned his scholarship and had one of the best years in the league.
Right.
In the inside spot there, and you've got guys like Renard Bell and Cassidy Woods. How much do you look at what production has gone on, and does it get totally shaken up, or do you say, well, Tay Martin's played quite a bit? Tay Martin's it probably may be an all-pack level player, or is it no? Let's reset everything. Brandon Gray and everybody haven't played as much. Let's go.
I think the way that we're going to do it, and we've done it everywhere else we've been, is it's a clean slate. Like I told the guys, we talked a little bit yesterday with the receivers, and I said, listen, it's a clean slate. Now, having played and having experience, obviously, is going to give you a little bit more advantage over some of the other guys. But at the same time, too, though, it's a different type of offense. And like I said, we're just going to go ahead and try to find the best guys that can produce and make plays. And we're not shy about rotating guys in either. At the last school we were at, we had a lot of guys that got a lot of touches and a lot of yards, and they were able to contribute. And I think that also gives a little bit more incentive for some of these other players. Hey, I'm not in the first 4 guys to get on the field. I'm never going to play. No, that's not the case. We want to try to get the best guys on the field, use their strengths and win football games. Keep them fresh, too. That's the other thing, too, now. I mean, it's a long season. When you're talking about, 12 games in the bowl game, possible championship game, you're talking about 12, 13, 14 games. Well, guess what? The guys, that start off in the beginning of the season might not look as fresh towards the end, so we got to also take that into consideration.
Yeah. What does it mean? So passing game coordinator, quarterbacks. You got Coach Rolo, who's an offensive guy, was a quarterback, right? Obviously, you got Coach Smith. He's got his background, kind of O-line, running backs, that sort of thing. How does that operation work for you guys when it comes to game planning, execution on game days, and that sort of thing?
Right. The 3 of us, we all sit in there, and also the other, guys on staff, Andre Allen and Mark Weber. We sit in there, and, it's pretty cool because you have, Rolo, what he's done at some of the other places, Nevada, Reno. Brian's been some other places, myself been at some other places, and we've all started off, in the run and shoot when we played together. We got to coach starting off kind of, different places or whatever it is, and now we come back and we're able to draw back from the other experiences of different places and try to go ahead and fit it into the run and shoot. The run and shoot is always going to be the base, but at the same time too, though, there's some cool things we learned along the way, and how can we fit into the offense? And that's what it's been. We've been able to add in some RPO plays. We've been able to add in some other concepts from, maybe the air raid or maybe some pro style or whatnot, but throw our own little run and shoot sprinkle on it and see how it fits. And that's how it's been the last 2 years especially, and it's been great. It's been fun. There's no egos. You see Coach Rolo, he's a very outgoing, personable guy that doesn't really have an ego. So, same with Brian and myself. So when we walk in through those doors and we game plan, we talk about plays and being creative, it's just, hey, let's go ahead and see how many points we can score and have some fun.
Love it. Craig, awesome. Great to meet you. Thanks for doing this. Craig Stutzman, absolutely. Great to meet Pass game coordinator, QB coach Craig Stutzman. We'll take our final break, come back, put a bow on it live here from the Cougar Football Complex next. Back here live, 6 new Cougars. It is the signing day special here 2020. This class has been finalized and rounded out, and we've spoken with 4 coaches here today in what has been a really quick hour and an informative one on a lot of levels, as we've got a new recruit in, and I want to talk about Jay Wilkerson a little bit. 6'1", 165-pound wide receiver from Texas, from the Dallas area, Midlothian, and Jay Wilkerson rounds out this class. So 6 new Cougs. Fa'alili Fa'amoy, a 6'5", 225-pound freshman from Pago Pago. Alphonse Oiwak, a 6'3", 180-pound freshman from Kent. Mike Petway is a 5'10", 170-pound freshman wide receiver from Alabama. Fa'amoy listed as a D lineman, Oiwak as a cornerback on the boundary there. And then Antonio Pule is a 6'4", 260-pound junior, a junior college transfer who's originally from Pago Pago. Shaw Smith from Chicago, Illinois, 6 foot, 180-pound freshman. And now Jay Wilkerson, a 6'1", 165-pound wide receiver from Texas. So you have recruits here, 2 from Pago Pago, one of them being from Modesto Junior College, Chicago, Illinois, Alabaster, Alabama, Midlothian, Texas, and Kent, Washington, Alphonse Oiwak. And we spoke with 4 coaches here today. I wanted to talk to Brian Smith. I want to go back in time. I want to talk to him about Abe Lucas and now Brian Green, who may be the center, and talk about all the other O-linemen out there.
Right. And I think that's the hard part, too, for these guys. Think about it. They get on board here at Washington State, and immediately, because signing day is coming up, they're on the road. These guys have barely been in the office,
right.
So talking to them both here, when they're on the show with us, and then the few minutes we spent beforehand, they know the guys on the roster. They're seeing, they're seeing the film, but they've only had a handful of interactions. They've gone in and seen them down in the weight room and that sort of thing. So I think even for Brian Smith and Craig Stutzman and everybody, it's kind of like, okay, who do we have, though, and what are they going to be? We kind of know the reputations, but, I love hearing, Coach Stutzman talk about, hey, it's a clean slate, because that gives everybody in this building a chance to come in and make a great impression. And, you're not here at Washington State if you don't have the talent to play at this level, and a lot of it is opportunity and mentality and mindset, and the hard work that goes into that. And so I think for a lot of guys on the roster, it's a chance to say, hey, I can kind of maybe remake myself, and maybe the scheme fits me better, maybe the coaching personalities fit me better, whatever it is. And so I love that mentality. But in general, right, I mean, we know all about Abe Lucas, we know all about Brian Green, but these guys don't. And so they're going to learn, and that's why you hear to a man, they all say we cannot wait for spring ball, because they want to see these guys on the field. They want to see them put pads on. They want to see them, face the adversity, have success, and go through all of those things.
Yeah, I'm excited for how many seconds it takes for Brian Smith and Rolovich to look at Abe Lucas and go, "Oh, okay, there's the right tackle."
We like him.
There's
him.
Absolutely.
I would be remiss. We have to
Please.
answer a question that came over Twitter.
A little live tweet.
Jennifer Delzer, a friend of the program and friend of the podcast,
Great
obviously.
Coug.
She asked if we could explain the difference in the QB autonomy between the air raid and the run and shoot. Are there a lot of checks from the sidelines? Are the QBs and wide receivers doing most of the checks on their own? My understanding of the differences is that in the air raid, you saw a lot when a quarterback was really rolling. Coach Leach and those guys would kind of just signal formation, and the quarterback would actually be able to call a play at the line of scrimmage based on what he thought. Difference in the run and shoot is that the play will come off the sideline. A lot of what is happening is post-snap. What that means is the receivers are looking at a coverage, and say I was supposed to run a go route, and the coverage dictates that I can't run that go route. I'm going to turn that go route into a curl or into a post route. They're actually changing the routes mid-play, and the quarterback is on the same page because they're all looking at the same coverage. That's what Coach Smith was talking about when he said quarterbacks and receivers meet together instead of meeting separately, because they watch film and they say, versus this coverage and in this play, I'm going to run a route this way. And so it sounds like there's a lot of gray area and there can be some ambiguity to it, but there's not, because everybody's on such the same page and they work so much on it. So to answer the question, there's stuff that happens pre-snap for sure, but a lot of it is pre-snap recognition, and the changes happen post-snap in the play. And so that's kind of the main difference. It's less of actually calling a play at the line of scrimmage. The play's going to come off the sideline or from the booth, and then ultimately those receivers and quarterbacks are on the same page as it plays out. That's the point that both Coach Stutzman and Coach Smith made, in that they basically have an answer every play for every defense, because the play can change as it goes.
we've got 60 seconds left. There's Night with Cougar football tonight at Northern Quest. Thanks to all the coaches who joined us. Really excited for Moy, Oiwak, Petway, Poulet, Smith, and Wilkerson, the 6 new Cougs to round out this class. Thanks to Jared Prengruber and Jerry Kylo and Jake Eisenberg to get us on the air. Next broadcast will be Sunday, 2:30 airtime, 3 o'clock tip, Cougs, Huskies in Beasley Coliseum. Big game. AB, thank you. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Absolutely. Cougs 2020 signing class all wrapped up. And, again, Northern Quest tonight is the site of the celebration for this new class. And Coach Rolovich and everybody. Go Cougs.